We're going to talk about your next hire. I know you're all very aware that you're constrained by your personal capacity to do work, aren't you? There's so much you can do. There's only so many hours in the day. You're quite busy. If there were two yous, you'd get more done, wouldn't you? So we're going to talk about what your next hire is, what your next person. Now, when we say hire, we all think of somebody you hire full time who works in your office, a tradie or an admin person or something. We're probably going to do that, but I think we can apply the same principle to any other hire, a VA, a bookkeeper, a marketing, somebody, agency, anybody. But we're probably thinking of a hire, right? A project manager, a tradesperson, an apprentice, somebody in the office to do the admin and manage that kind of thing, or an estimator, something like that, right? So you're very busy. You struggle to make time for the work that will move the needle for you. One way is to grow your team and have more people to do the work so that you can have more time for this new stuff. The only way to grow a bigger trade business is to have a team of people doing more work than you can do, of course. I do understand that your first response to let's talk about your next hire is probably going to be something along the lines of, I would love to do that if I could afford to. I understand that. Also understand that tradespeople, if you've got work for them to do, make you money, and other people don't. They're an overhead that has to be paid for by tradespeople doing the work. So I want you to do this. I want you to think through your capacity constraints and what they are. This is the process I'm going to take you through now. Then we'll identify what your next hire should be, the one that's going to make the most difference to your business. Then we'll plan the hiring process, right? We're going to write the job description together. We're going to write the attributes you want the person to have. We're going to write an appealing job ad. We're going to write the interview questions for the interview so you can check if they've got the attributes you want them to have. And we're going to write the questions for the referees as well. And then we're going to pause and hold off until you feel ready to hire that role. And we're going to actually think about when you're going to hire it. What has to happen for you to go, all right, bang, I'm going to pull the trigger. And then when you pull the trigger, you're all ready. How does that sound? You can just nod. Yeah, thumbs up. Thanks, Alex. So we all procrastinate over hiring people. People are expensive. It's risky to hire because they might be or we might hire badly, or we hire in haste. I don't know if any of you think this sounds familiar. We hire in haste without doing it properly, and then we hire badly, and we get somebody who isn't really suitable, which of course costs us money and time and often sets us back. I've done it. I'm pretty sure everybody's done it. It's easy to make decisions with hiring. So I hired, right? She worked well for me as kind of an admin assistant, but she kind of sold herself as a super duper operations manager and a great marketer who would do my operations and my back end and make sure my ads and marketing hit the mark. And she kind of didn't do that, right? And I blame myself for expecting that from her and not getting it. I hired who was lovely, and she was going to accelerate my sales. And despite her being very nice and being my business coach as part of his sales team, I paid her for 9 months and she got me no sales at all. And I hired for a similar role, and she said she was ace at sales, but also didn't actually generate me any new clients. So that's 3. It's easy to hire people who don't do what you hope. In my case, I hired people I liked. A friend, she's still a friend, was recommended by a friend. He worked in sales for Taki Moore. So I kind of assumed she was good without really checking whether she was going to be good for me. I'm going to be more careful in future. And if you're sitting there going, you're an idiot, John, I know I am. None of them were terrible, but neither were they quite right for what I wanted, and they didn't really deliver what I hoped. I've been luckier with Venus, Emily, Hannah, and David, who are doing a great job. But that's in part down to Michelle doing a better job of managing them than I was, I think. That's definitely a thing. You need to look after them once you've hired them as well. That's important, like we just talked about. This is the way most people hire, right? This is what I've observed, is you start going, oh, it would be good to hire this role or have this role or get another tradesperson or grow. And then somewhere along the way, somebody kind of pops onto the scene. They either knock on the door and say, are you hiring? Or they're a friend of a friend and somebody introduces you and they say something like, I heard you might be looking, or are you looking, or something. And then you hire them in a kind of someone said they were nice or decent. So you met them, they seem nice and decent. So you're off talking about the money and talking about the practicalities of hiring somebody without really putting a lot of energy into ascertaining whether they're a good fit or not. Who's done that? I'm looking at all of you. I know you've all done it. I know I've done it. Right? And I've seen most of you do it. Right? I could probably point to most of you and go, you did it with that guy. Right? It's quite common. And I think it's a natural thing to do, right? And what happens is, especially if it's someone kind of in our network somehow who we know a bit or we know of a bit, we kind of tend to assume that stuff, don't we? Somebody said they were decent and nice. We tend to go, oh, yeah, right. It's how we do sales. It's how we choose to buy things. It's how we choose to accept people. So if you are guilty of that, which you probably are, watch yourself, because it's quite costly, right? If you hire somebody who's bad, it's quite costly because, if it's a 3-month process to replace them, you've cost yourself 3 months of having a good person. Never mind whatever money and time you spent on the person who, ended up not joining or not doing a good job or you had to get rid of or something. Let's start with, what do you think your constraints are? Are they money, capacity, systems, not enough time? What are your constraints with hiring? So let's think about yours. What do you think your constraints are? What's holding you back? And if you weren't constrained by money and you could afford to hire somebody, who would it be? Because that's quite a nice thing to do, right? If you could afford to hire somebody, what role would you hire? What role would make the most difference? If I had the money to hire somebody new now, who would it be? What would I do? What would I hire? And it could be a tradesperson. It could be a project manager, somebody out in the field to make more money and do more work and enhance the capacity of your team to do more work. Or it could be somebody in the office to enhance the ability of the office to manage more tradespeople if you grow. Or it could be somebody who's going to take work away from you so that you're freed up to go and build your business better.